Gabor Lukacs join us now. He's an air passenger rights advocate. Gabor, thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening. This holiday season, Gabor, has seen it all. Delays, cancellations, passengers being stranded in foreign destinations, luggage missing for days or completely missing. Basically, chaos. In your understanding, what does this talk about the entire system and the aviation in our country?
What we have seen is a breakdown of enforcement in Canada. We have various laws. The laws themselves are flawed in that they are too complex to understand, too complex to enforce, too complex to adjudicate. And on top of that, we have the federal government, the federal regulator, the Canadian Transportation Agency, doing virtually nothing to actually enforce the rights that passengers have. Airlines are not being fined, even though those fines are available in the law books, up to $25,000 per violation per passenger per incident, and the airlines are acting accordingly.
To your point about the federal government not doing anything, we have heard from Omar Al-Gabra's office just today saying they're keeping a close eye of what has happened, and of course they will take necessary action if need be. What do you make of that statement?
It's really an empty big nothing. What do you mean by monitoring the situation? I've spent my whole day, and I'm not a minister of transport, but I spend my whole day here in front of my computer answering passengers, trying to give passengers information, helping them to just find a way back to Canada, to know what their rights are. As a minister, Mr. Gabra could issue marching orders to the Canadian Transportation Agency through the cabinet. That is permitted under the law. He could actually order proper enforcement, and he could actually come back to Parliament and very quickly enact amendments to the Canada Transportation Act.
I'm just curious, Gabor, sorry for interrupting you there, but in your understanding, what is stopping the government to do all of that you're suggesting?
What is stopping the government is probably some old boys club financial interest. We have seen during the pandemic at the beginning that the government has been more concerned about protecting airlines' private financial interest than actually protecting passengers.
Okay, let's now talk about the passengers who are the worst affected in all of this. There's all of these conditions that we've discussed, whether it's a delay or a cancellation or missing of the luggage, or different categories in terms of compensations they may have or may not have. Gabor, help us break them down, the provisions that they have.
If your baggage is delayed, then the airline is liable for out-of-pocket expenses that you incur, damages you incur to replace interim items, to maybe go and purchase those, cab bill and so on, up to approximately 2,300 Canadian dollars per passenger. The airline is liable to your expenses that you keep incurring until they put the baggage in your hands. You don't have to go to the various warehouses to pick up your baggage. It is the airline's problem to deliver it to you. You keep incurring expenses until they actually give your baggage back to you. When it comes to passenger delay and flight cancellation, the main source of passengers' rights is actually an international treaty called the Montreal Convention, when we are talking about Sunwing passengers. And the airline is liable for out-of-pocket expenses such as meals, accommodation, lost wages, babysitter for your pets, you name it, up to approximately 2,700 Canadian dollars. Unless the airline can prove that it has taken all reasonable measures to prevent the delay. That's a very high threshold for the airline to prove. On top of that, in situations where the flight was canceled or delayed for reasons within the carrier's control and not for safety reasons, the airline also has to pay you a lump sum compensation under the APPR. It is up to $500 for a small carrier like Sunwing, up to $1,000 for a large carrier like Air Canada, Swoop, and WestJet.
So there are lots of options, but passengers need to be aware of their rights, and that is the most important. Gabor Lukacs, thank you for joining us, Air Passenger Rights Advocate. Appreciate your insights.
Thank you very much for having me.